Welcome to the With Winning in Mind podcast. I'm Heather Sumlin along with Troy Bassham. And we've decided today that we're going to tackle a topic that we really don't spend enough time on, and that's mental rehearsal. And Troy, you were talking to me just a few minutes ago about someone that you were working with who really needed to understand mental rehearsal. So maybe we should go with what's the differences, in your opinion, between visualization and mental rehearsal, and then how do the two compare?
Yeah, I think people intertwine them as the same. I look at them as two separate entities. So when I look at visualization, to me, that term comes from the psychology world, specifically sports psychology. But there's not a concrete way of how they view it. So I've talked to, being in the Olympic Training Center, when I was on the national team, you go there, you're required to talk to, the sports psychologist there. And thank goodness we have some good ones. And they look at things, obviously, from a performance direction because they're helping athletes. But what's interesting is when they talk visualization, they would talk as if you're watching yourself perform well. Like I'm watching myself on TV.
But you'll never
not doing it. Correct. Okay. And then you get into, I had one deeper, I was 17 and was really, because our dad always said, if you can learn, so just because our dad's a mental guru doesn't mean we can't learn from other mental gurus, right?
Well, we read books all the time.
Yeah. And so when I was talking, I had lunch with this one sports psychologist his name was Bud. Well, how cool a name is that?
That's
Bud.
Cool name.
Yeah.
I like it.
Probably gets teased a lot with Budweiser, Bud Light stuff, but
yeah, but like buddy,
Bud,
it makes you think we're gonna be friends.
Well, he was really easy to talk to. He was very informative when he would present things, and so when I was talking to him, he was like, there's two ways you can go about it. You can see yourself, like we do the exercise where you stand on the podium and you picture yourself receiving the gold medal. That would be like you taking it personally and doing it as you're doing it. The other way is seeing yourself do it, which is more of an external, like out of the body kind of in the body. To me, mental rehearsal is when you are mentally rehearsing doing something as if you're doing it physically, but up here. So you do it from your own eyes, your own body. So if a golfer is taking a practice swing, that would be a mental rehearsal. They're feeling the shot they want. They're imprinting. They're thinking about what do I want to do and how does it feel? Where visualization would be, I'm watching myself hit the golf ball.
So would watching video back be a form of visualization?
I think so. I think it'd be a form of visualization. But what was interesting is how people intertwine mental rehearsal and visualization. I like to separate it. So when I'm talking mental rehearsal, the person I'm talking to knows I'm talking about as if we're doing it, but we're doing it up here rather than physical. So I used the story of Leif Roland, who was 2-time world record holder in air rifle, one of the best air rifle shooters, at least in the 90s era. And he would, every night, he would mentally rehearse shooting a match, every shot just like he wants to do it. From a mental and physical viewpoint, he was executing it just as if he was actually doing it.
So mental and physical? So is he dry firing?
No. He's just in bed, but he's picturing himself doing it.
Picturing how it would feel and what it would be.
Yeah. But now you're about to segue.
Every shot?
Now you have a shot. So I said, so you're telling me you're shooting a perfect score the night before, the night before a match or when you go to sleep. And he's like, well, usually I fall asleep by shot 30. But the idea is, do you think it's a coincidence he was 2-time world record holder? Or do you think this form of training had something to do with it? According to him, this form of training had something to do with it. I mean, certainly he spends a lot of hours shooting. You can't just not shoot. So brings me up to this week, and I'm getting over a cold, so I sound probably froggy today. But
yes,
had a
you kind of do now that you mention it.
I know, I'm froggy man today. So I had this college golfer that I've been working. I've known it for 2 years. So you would think, well, he understands the importance of mental game. And so we were talking about, okay, well, what do you teach in this and how do you use it and that kind of stuff. And so I'm sitting there going like, well, this kid knows our system. But he's telling me the other day that, I just never realized the importance of the mental game.
The mental game as a whole, or just the rehearsal part?
More specifically the rehearsal part, but as a whole in general. He's like, I understood the purpose of it, but I didn't, he understood, but he didn't really grasp the importance of it to him. It's like, I understand why people do it, but I don't understand why it's important for me to do it. And so he brought up the story. So Brian Johnson, if you haven't watched any of Brian Johnson's videos on YouTube, do it. He basically owns a company that they review books. And he's like, here's the 5 things I got from this book. You can watch it. Most of the time, you're going to want to go buy the book and dive in deeper. Because, okay, if he brought up those 5 things, what else is in the book? And it's just short deals. But they were telling a story about our dad, doing mental rehearsal. And like he literally just merely rehearsed in a room by himself. And so I was telling this athlete, I said, well, that's not quite the story. And he goes, what do you mean? Okay, so he took a bedroom. Just imagine a room about the size of what we're at here.
Well, and this was when we were little. And so he also did it after we went to bed, didn't he?
He went 3 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I said, but what he's doing is he suited up. He's got the gun in hand. He's just got a dot on the wall, and he's pretending. We call it dry fire. He's pretending to shoot. There's no bullets. It's just, he just click, click, click. But he's going through the same process, mental and physical process, as if he was at the range shooting, but he's in a room by himself. So he's following through with it. He's calling his shots. He's running his mental program. He's getting into a rhythm, and he's shooting good scores after good scores after good scores, even though there's no evidence of it. But he's doing this. And I said he did it in a 2-year period. He only went to the range twice.
And those were competitions, right?
First one was a tryouts for the World Championships. The second one was the World Championships. And he winds up winning the World Championship. So for 2 years, he only actually shot 6 days.
Wow.
In a 2-year period. That to me is how powerful the mental game really is. And talking about mental rehearsal, if you want to use the term visualization and combine that, that's fine. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of he's shooting every night, well, basically every morning, 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., like he's competing. Mentally going through that. Well, the advantage to that is you control what you picture. So what would you do? You would shoot good shots. What would you do if you were in another kind of competition? If you're a quarterback, what are you going to mentally rehearse? That you're making awesome throws. You're making big plays where they're needed. If you're a basketball player and you're, rehearsing a free throw, are you making it? Hopefully.
I hope so. Yeah.
But this kid, he's like, yeah, just for some reason, I just worry about what's going to go wrong. And when I saw this, I'm like, wow, I've been doing it wrong. I need to focus on what I want to have. And I'm like, have you not been listening to what we've been talking about the last 18 months? I mean, everything is about what you control. The principle reinforcement is the one principle I ask people to memorize. And that's the more you think about, talk about, write about something happening, you prove the probability of that thing happening. We've talked about it quite a bit on this channel. But the reality is I think people don't truly grasp how powerful mental rehearsal is. And it's powerful because it supports that principle.
You flew through the principle of reinforcement, so I'm going to jump on it a second. So if you haven't read With Winning in Mind, or you haven't done any training with us, the principle of reinforcement is by far our most popular principle that people follow. It's the one that you have everybody memorize. And I feel like it's really important to talk about it for just a second. So the more you think about, talk about, and write about something happening, you improve the probability of that thing happening. So we're really focusing on thinking here.
And using that to improve the probability that we get what we want.
Exactly, because it actually impacts self-image in such a positive way. So why would you ever think about, talk about, and write about what you don't want if you're going to get what you're thinking about, talking about, write about?
You know my answer to that. Because we live in the United States of.
Oh, negativity.
Yeah.
Well, but when people understand that they need to think about, talk about, and write about what they want to have happen, it changes.
Yeah. I think it's easy to see on the surface, but to really apply it, because how many times do you catch yourself thinking about something you don't want to have happen? A lot.
A lot.
Yeah, and just look at the world.
Catch myself.
But just look at the world. How many people are worried about something? Oh my gosh, are we really going to beat this team? I don't know. We were just talking about that earlier. Where hey, you got this school, going to compete with this other school. And they're like, yeah, but this other school's number one. They've already defeated themselves before they get there. Right. And I watched the Houston Texans and Philadelphia Eagles yesterday because I don't want the Eagles to win, so I'm rooting for the Texans to beat the Eagles.
I'm sorry, Eagle fans.
That's fine. I enjoy watching the rise of Jalen Hurts. I like people who come in and they wind up doing really well, and you see progress. That's fun. Even if it's a team I don't really care for, if there's someone that you see that progression and what their career is, the question is, how good can they get? And it gets better and better and better. So I'm looking from that perspective. But no one gave the Texans any chance. Nobody. I mean, I'm watching the previews, leading up to it, and they're all saying, okay, so when are they going to pull Hurts out of the game? Do you think he'll play the second half? The guy's like, yeah, he'll probably, he just probably won't play the fourth quarter. I mean, they've already written off the Texans. Well, at halftime it was 14-14, tie game. Ooh. So it wasn't so easy.
I did not watch this game.
Yeah, so it wasn't that easy. Now, the Eagles did, come back and start playing really, really well in the second half. Not that they were playing bad. It's just Houston looked like a whole different team the first half than what they have for the whole year. But the idea is, do you think that we're talking about, mental rehearsal? Do you think this team is like, yeah, we're going to lose. What's the point? Or do you think they're thinking about ways to win during the week leading up to this?
A professional athlete really needs to be thinking about ways to win.
Yeah. How are you going to set records if you don't think about it?
Absolutely.
So to me, looking at it is like, okay, now go back to the vividness of the rehearsal. So go back to the dad story, right?
Right.
Here he is 3 hours pretending to shoot. Now for an 8-year-old, that might sound great. But to someone that's in their 30s.
It was a full-time job, father of 3.
And he's in the master's program at this time too. He's going to school. So that's the other thing. He's going to school, studying some sort of
something.
Some rocket science stuff that I don't know how he got into that, but apparently the position that he was going for in the military required him to have a master's degree in this high science field, which is not his main interest. So he's studying.
I don't think I've ever heard Dad talk about anything like deeply be interested in anything science related. So that's really shocking.
Now that's the science of mental management or science of executing.
It's like psychology or something like that. Yes, but like not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really interesting.
Yeah. But what was really eye-opening to me the other day was this athlete, good athlete, he's a freshman in college, kid can play, and he's saying, I understood why it was important, but I really didn't grasp the real importance to it for me. And it was like the light bulb hit when he heard this story. And after I told him the rest of the story, he was even more impressed. He's like, so you're telling me that your dad literally didn't do any shooting except for these 2 events in that 2-year period? I go, yeah. So it would be like me hitting a ball in the net at my house. I get no feedback. And I said, exactly. Right. And I'm running my mental program at every shot. Exactly. And I'm pretending that I hit this fairway. I drove it this far, hit over there along with actually doing this and mentally thinking this. I go, yes. He goes, wow, I just never thought of it that way.
I think also when you're working with people, there's so much information that we have to offer that they take what they need in the moment and then kind of discard some of the stuff that they're not quite ready for. So it could just be that he wasn't ready to receive it until now. Not that he wasn't listening or paying attention, but he was implementing some of the other strategies that you've been teaching him, and this one just kind of...
Well, mental rehearsal can be used in a variety of things. We use it for presetting. If you don't know what preset is, that's our term for preparing for the day. You
And
preset the mind.
We're going to dive more into some of this for our Patreon members. So if you are not already a Patreon member, I highly recommend that you join our Patreon membership at the silver or gold level, because we'll do a deep dive into how do we apply these principles and these things that we're talking about to our mental program and where does it all fit.
Yeah, but you're using mental rehearsal in preset. You're using it in preload. Like I'm getting ready to execute the shot. I'm picturing how I'm going to do it using the strategy that I want to implement for this particular shot. Okay, so that can change from one to the other, but I'm getting imprint after imprint after imprint. The reason why we know it's important is because self-images change through imprinting. So how do you imprint? In this case, you're imagining that you're doing it. But if it's not done vividly, it's not counting. Like you can't just say, I'm going to win. Yeah, and picture yourself with the trophy. That's not going to happen. We're talking about, no, I'm rehearsing like I'm competing in the event. Imagine that.
I like when Dad says, the reason he likes to call it mental rehearsal is because when you rehearse for something like a play, you're not going to skip any sections. You're going to do it full out. It's like a dress rehearsal. It kind of puts it into context. I feel like that we are using mental rehearsal as an actual duplication of what is about to happen.
Correct. Improving the probability that we get what we want, which is my favorite word in the principal reinforcement is probability. I'm improving the probability, which means it's more likely to happen than not. It's not like, you go buy a lottery ticket today, you improve the probability because you have a ticket.
Right.
But the reality is, you really...
If I imagine myself winning, that's not necessarily going to make that happen.
There's nothing I can...
It's not magic. Yeah.
Correct. But if it was a competition I'm preparing for, and I'm putting myself in competition, and I do these things to improve the probability of winning. That's why I like John Wooden so much. John Wooden never talked about winning to his athletes, and yet he's one of the most successful coaches of all time in any sport. His happened to be basketball. But he was like, why do I need to talk about winning? If I put a game plan together and the team, they implement it, and we're right, what do you think the outcome is going to be? We don't have to worry about winning. It'll take care of itself. Winning is a byproduct of how well we executed our strategies and prepared for this. And if we don't, that either means one or two things. Either one, they need to do a better job of implementing the game plan, or two, I need to readjust the game plan and going forward. But it all starts with, he's running scrimmages and he's putting them in scenarios. And why? Like you said, dress rehearsal. They're doing it. We're just saying, why wait to practice? Do it the night before. You go to bed, no one just goes, I know one person that hits they're out like a light within like 2 minutes when they hit the pillow. But most people are going to sit there for about 5-15 minutes, waiting to go to sleep. What better way to use that time than mentally rehearsing that you're doing really good at your sport or your, academics or your job or whatever it is. You're talking about somebody going to a job interview, has a big opportunity to go to a job interview, and they're like, man, I'm just so nervous. Well,
Imagine yourself being calm.
Yeah, I'm answering these questions. I'm prepared for these questions, and I'm in a suit. I'm in front of this person. I'm talking this way, and you're actually doing that in the comfort of your bed. That's huge, powerful. But it's amazing how many people understand it, but don't really grasp the importance of it to implement it in their daily training regimen. So the night before, like I said, the morning of, situations depending on the sport, we're going to rehearse here, we're going to rehearse there. There's different forms. In fact, our performance analysis is a form of rehearsal.
Absolutely.
So if you're not doing some sort of mental rehearsal in your sport on a consistent basis, I highly encourage you to do that.
Well, in life too, it's not just specific to sports. So you can utilize it in business. You can even utilize it in, you're about to have a conversation with someone. You can rehearse how you would like that conversation to go. And sometimes you'll change your mind on exactly what you want to say, because you'll realize, oh, this is what I really want to feel. This is how I want this to go. It can be really life-changing.
Yeah. And if you think about it, it's kind of cool, because it can shorten the time of success.
Ooh, I like that. So if you want to shorten it even more, join our Patreon membership, because Troy and I are going to do a deep dive into rehearsal, the types of rehearsal, how to use it within the mental program, and so much more. Thank you so much for watching. Like this video if you do, share it with a friend, and we'll see you next time.